Gulfstream G700, the new measure of ultra-long-range luxury. There is one cabin feature on the Gulfstream G700 that quietly changes how you sleep, recover, and arrive. So effectively that first-time owners often plan their schedules around it after just a single intercontinental trip. I'll tell you what it is, and why it matters more than a few extra knots, at the very end. Opening sequence. The silence of speed. Picture a departure from a quiet executive terminal just before midnight. Taxi is smooth, the runway lights glide beneath the nose, and rotation comes with the signature Gulfstream loft. Precise, unhurried, confident. The climb rate feels effortless. The cabin remains hushed. Within minutes, you are at an initial cruise altitude that would push many commercial jets to their limits, and yet conversation flows at a normal tone. This is the Gulfstream G700, Gulfstream's current flagship, and arguably the most balanced expression of speed, range, and cabin experience in business aviation today. It does not simply go far. On paper, the range eclipses most itineraries executives actually fly. It goes far at high speed while preserving a cabin environment engineered to keep people alert, hydrated, and ready to perform after 12 to 14 hours aloft. The G700 occupies that rare space where performance numbers and lived experience reinforce one another. Top operators and flight departments care about schedule flexibility and dispatch reliability. Principals and families care about arrival quality. The G700 treats both as non-negotiable. That dual mandate is visible everywhere, from the power-dense Rolls-Royce Pearl 700 engines to the active sidestick Symmetry Flight Deck up front, and from the 5-zone cabin architecture to the 20 panoramic oval windows that drenched Gulfstream cabins in daylight long before wellness became a marketing buzzword. Overview: what the airplane is in one breath. The G700 is a U.S.-built ultra-long-range business jet with a maximum range in the neighborhood of 7,750 nautical miles at long-range cruise, a high-speed cruise capability at Mach 0.90 for well over 6,000 nautical miles, and a maximum operating number nudging Mach 0.935. It seats up to 19 in certified configurations and can sleep as many as 13, depending on layout. The cabin forms up to 5 distinct living areas, including an optional grand suite with a shower. The pressurization system produces the industry's lowest published cabin altitude at typical cruise, and the air system feeds 100% fresh, plasma ionized air every few minutes. The wing, with its clean aerodynamics, and the Pearl 700 engines deliver a combination of speed and efficiency that overcomes many either-or trade-offs pilots used to accept. And the airplane's runway and climb performance unlocks city pairs that previously demanded fuel stops or a slower schedule. What matters about those numbers is what they free you to do. New York to Hong Kong, with the clock advantage of high-speed cruise, Los Angeles to London non-stop with the confidence of generous reserves, or Dubai to Houston with a tailwind-agnostic plan that keeps commitments intact. It's the removal of friction that sells owners on the G700 as a platform, not just a cabin. Power and performance. What the Pearl 700 brings. A large cabin jet lives or dies on its engines. Rolls-Royce's Pearl 700 family brings a modern core with efficiency gains and thermal headroom that support both long-range loiter and sustained high Mach cruising. Thrust ratings per side crest the mid-teens in thousands of pounds at takeoff, with the margin you want for short summer runways and hot and high departures. Noise is contained. Vibration is suppressed at source. From the cabin, you experience propulsion as an absence of fatigue rather than a presence of thrust. That's a design achievement, not a marketing phrase. Connectivity, control, and quiet details. High-throughput K-band connectivity has matured to the point where I can call the G700 a legitimate office extension. File syncs complete. Video conferences hold steady. Cabin management is tactile and predictable. You are never more than a touch or a glance away from controlling lights, temperature, blinds, media. The beauty is that the tech retreats into the background. Guests unfamiliar with business jets can still find a reading light and a comfortable sleeping position without a tutorial. Key specifications in practice. The outside measurements explain the inside discretion. Length slightly north of 109 feet and a wingspan in the 103-foot class create the physical envelope for cabin length just shy of 57 feet, with a width a touch over 8 feet and a height in the low 6-foot range. Service ceiling reaches the low 50s in thousands of feet. Takeoff distance at max weight sits around 6,000 feet on a standard day, and maximum takeoff weight pushes into the high 40s in metric tons, just north of 107,000 pounds. The useful numbers behind the numbers: you feel the wing and engine combination most on step climbs at high weight and on the final hour of a very long leg, where the jet keeps energy in hand without chasing altitude or sacrificing speed. Money, markets, and operating reality. Let's speak plainly about cost, because your viewers appreciate honesty. New build ask prices for fully optioned G700s have been hovering around the low to mid $80 million mark in 2024 to 2025 transaction chatter, with market variance created by slot value and customization. Published estimates commonly frame acquisition around the mid-70s to low 80s, depending on timing and spec. That is the buy-in. The real calculus comes with operations. Annual budgets depend on utilization. Designed assumptions around 200 to 400 flight hours per year translate to annual operating budgets in the low $2 million to mid $3 million range for many owners. Once you roll in crew, training, insurance, hangar, maintenance tracking, engine programs, nav data, and the fuel profile of a large cabin jet flown at respectable speeds. Hourly direct operating cost estimates vary widely by methodology, but credible models cluster around a mid to high single $1,000s per flight hour for direct costs, with total ownership cost per hour stepping higher once you allocate fixed costs across your actual hours. In charter markets, published starting points for a G700 flight hour often appear in the mid-teens of thousands of dollars and climb based on routing, availability, and cabin layout. None of those numbers are theoretical to the people who run these airplanes for a living. They are planning inputs that determine whether the jet frees time or consumes it. What I see in flight departments is a pivot toward the G700 precisely because it earns back time that would otherwise be lost to fuel stops, longer cruise at lower speeds, or less restorative cabins. Time is the commodity, the G700 is the tool, and cost is measured against what those hours are worth. Comparisons: Global 7500 and Falcon 10X. Viewers ask for comparisons, so let's address the two obvious peers. The Bombardier Global 7500 is the G700's fiercest rival. It is an exceptional performer with a published range that edges the market's long-range headline, and a cabin that many owners love for its four-zone layout and distinct aesthetic. On paper, the Global 7500 retains an advantage in headline range figures. In the real world, the G700's ability to hold high-speed cruise with meaningful legs along with its cabin altitude advantage and window geometry, closes the experiential gap and, for some principles, flips the decision. You could credibly choose either and be right. The G700's maximum operating Mach that nudges 0.935 gives pilots a time-in-bank strategy on westbound legs where a few extra minutes matter. Looking down the road, Dassault's Falcon 10X promises the largest cabin in the segment by width and height, paired with a long-range mission profile and brand-new systems. The 10X is not yet in customer service as of this recording, so direct hours-based comparisons are theory, but its arrival will push Gulfstream and Bombardier to keep iterating. Competition is good for owners, and the G700 is a very stiff bar for any newcomer to clear in the total experience equation. The passenger story: a walk through 5 living areas. Let's walk it as a guest. You board into a foyer that feels like the lobby of a discreet hotel. Forward, the galley functions like a culinary studio, insulated from the cabin so aromas and workflow don't intrude. The first living area reads as a lounge and workspace. Wide armchairs, a sofa with proper lumbar geometry, and window spacing that delivers sunlight evenly across faces. Mid-cabin, a conference dining zone pivots from a fully set meal to a screen-centric collaboration in minutes. Aft of that, the media lounge. Sight lines are clean. Screen reflections are controlled by geometry and intelligent lighting rather than blunt force darkness. Keep walking, and you enter the grand suite, a true stateroom with a door that actually gives you psychological privacy, and a shower that turns a dawn arrival into an unfair advantage. Baggage is accessible. You never feel like luggage is an afterthought. Key features that actually change outcomes. The G700's winning trio, low cabin altitude, large windows, and high-speed range, changes how people schedule their lives. Executives push dinner later the night before because they know they will sleep properly and wake at a cabin altitude that feels like a healthy mountain town, not a summit. Parents become less anxious about overnight crossings with kids because real beds and quiet zones keep routines intact. Teams fly a same-day transatlantic at Mach 0.90, present, dine, and slip into bed in the grand suite without feeling wrung out. In other words, the airplane is not a symbol. It's a system that safeguards energy. The numbers owners ask about. Cabin dimensions approximate 6 feet 3 inches tall, 8 feet 2 inches wide, and nearly 57 feet long excluding the baggage area. Interior volume lands in the mid-2,000 cubic foot class. Exterior length sits just shy of 110 feet, with a wingspan around 103 feet and a tail height near 25 feet. Maximum takeoff weight is in the neighborhood of 107,600 pounds, and maximum cruise altitude touches 51,000 feet. The airplane's takeoff distance at maximum weight sits just under 6,000 feet on a standard day. Maximum range at long-range cruise is advertised at 7,750 nautical miles. At high-speed cruise, it remains a formidable 6,650. Maximum operating Mach is 0.935. Those are catalog numbers, but they map closely to the mission logs operators are building day after day. My take: why the G700 works in the real world. I have flown, filmed, and written about large cabin jets for years. My consistent impression with the G700 is that it never shouts. It simply shortens time and reduces friction. In an industry awash with superlatives, that quiet competence is the most luxurious quality of all. If your priorities are arrival quality, punctuality on aggressive schedules, and a cabin that remains humane deep into hour 12, the G700 is the strongest all-around package on the market right now. If you live on the longest of long routes and you value headline range slightly above everything else, the Global 7500 still argues a compelling case. If you want the largest cabin cross-section in the future with innovative French systems, keep an eye on the Falcon 10X. But if you want the airplane that, today, blends speed, range, and wellness into a coherent whole with a mature U.S. support ecosystem, the G700 is the benchmark. The reveal. At the top, I teased the one cabin feature owners end up scheduling their lives around. It's not the bed, and it's not the shower, though both are superb. It's the cabin altitude. At typical cruise, the G700 keeps pressure so comfortable and refreshes the air so thoroughly that sleep cycles shift closer to what you experience at home. That physiological reality compounds over sector after sector. People wake up with clearer heads, lower heart rates, and less dehydration. Meetings run better. Decisions get sharper. Trips feel shorter. That is the luxury worth buying. Energy you can spend where it counts. If this deep dive helped you see beyond the brochure, like the video, share it with someone who obsesses over aircraft as much as we do, and tell us which route you'd test first at Mach 0.90. Subscribe for more luxury aviation. Join to support our access. Consider a super thanks if this saved you time. And don't forget to drop a free hype boost so this video reaches more people who love the world's finest machines.